The new Pandora DX is here. It's time for a message from the future. Welcome to the Wicked Gamer and Collector. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So in today's message from the future, we are going to talk about the new Pandora DX. So the first thing that I asked the seller is, why aren't you calling this the Pandora Box 7? Because I don't know how it's with the Wickedfamily and with the people watching this video. I was waiting for number 7. A lot of people were. He explained to me that the problem was with this Pandora Box 7 name is that a lot of knockoff bootlegs and made it all more confusing than it already is. So he decided to call it the Pandora DX. I find it a little bit of a shame, but nevertheless, let's take a close look at the new Pandora DX and let's see what we're going to get. So let's talk about what kind of versions are we going to get with the Pandora Box DX. First of all, we're having of course the mainboard itself, and that is very convenient. If you're having a very old Pandora box laying around, you can just basically upgrade this. But keep in mind, always check your connections, because it's not always compatible with your Pandora box, especially when you're having not the official one. Keep that one in mind. So we're having the console edition, or they love to call this console edition. What they just basically did is having the mainboard, and you can choose between the wired controller and wireless controller. You're going to get this little switch that you're going to put in the connection where you can turn it on and off. This is the console edition, and in the future I'm guessing they will give us the single player edition and also the 2-player arcade editions. So we're having different ways to play the Pandora Box DX. The game collection, 3000 games. But the question is, what kind of games are we going to get? Because if you look at the Pandora Box 5 and 6, we had almost every, let's say, familiar arcade MAME Neo Geo game and some PlayStation 1 games. But with the Pandora DX, we have some support for Mega Drive, Super Famicom. But unfortunate, it's that we don't have Sega Dreamcast. And we don't have PSP. It's not a big of an issue because in the previous mainboard they were not running on 60 frames, but with the new Pandora box I was hoping to get more power, and of course that we're having the support for all the platforms. So the Pandora DX, I am afraid that we're going to get a 3000 shitty list with a lot of double games. The hack games are fun, I know how it's with you, but I really love to have 3000 good games. There will be a mix up with Mega Drive, or better said 16-bit games. There are no 8-bit games so far I know, so this is what we're going to get. If you look at the resolution, still with the new Pandora DX, it's running on 720p. If you're thinking, why is this a big problem? I think it's a problem if you're having a new Pandora box but there is no improvement in the resolution. It's still the same from the Pandora Box 5 and 6. I did review of some of these Pandora boxes that are running on 1080p, for example the Pandora Key 7, or in other words the bootleg, how they like to say it. But why does the bootleg have 1080p and the new Pandora box in 2020 have still 720p? So I think this is something we need to live with. I don't know why this is, but at the end 720p seems to be the standard for signal output HDMI. In the time area we're going to play on 4K. So we're having finally controller support for the Pandora DX. What I think is a big problem with these controller port support things is that we can't use our regular PlayStation, Xbox controllers. And I know for a fact this is going to be, and I know I didn't have it in my hand, but I have reviewed so many of these boxes. I know for sure that this Pandora box has the same issue like all the other ones. We're going to get the UCOM controllers or something like it. They're more basically rip-off PlayStation 2 controllers. They are not like PlayStation 2 controllers. We can choose for wireless and wired controllers, but at the end they are just knockoff controllers. They play sometimes pretty decent, but it is not the real deal. And I did notice that a lot of people want to play with the original Sony and Xbox controller. We're going to try it out in the main review, do an extended review about it, but at the end it's such a bummer that we're only getting to get the solution for knockoff controllers. Boo-hoo. The settings menu. So if you look at the settings menu, there are some minor differences. From the Pandora Box 5 to 6 we had some big improvements, but at the end, if you look at the settings menu, we have scan line function like the Pandora Game 3D and the Pandora Saga 3D. But I'm afraid, guys, that we don't have the aspect ratio. I think that is the #1 request at the moment in the comment section here, the Wicked Gamer and Collector. But still, it seems to be they don't give a shit or something like, or it's very hard to program it, I don't know. But at the end, if you want to have an 4x3, or maybe something magical happens when I'm getting the bug, but at the end, if you look at the menu, no, there is not a big improvement of the screen aspect ratio. A little bit of a shame, but this is what we're going to get with the Pandora DX. So, the new menu design. I must say, I like it. It's the old school menu that they are using quite some time ago. From the Pandora Box 4, I have this thing laying around and I can already tell you they did tweak it a little bit, make it more fancy. But I can really appreciate that they're still using this menu. I think it's cool, it's very nice. To be honest, the Pandora Box Games 3D has this more like an battle list that we have in category system, etc, etc, but they put it on a different list. So we're having this main menu where you can switch between lists. We're having the search function, of course, and all the improvements of the previous model, we have it over here. So if it comes to the list, it's the best list, I can live with it. But at the end, this is what you're going to get with the menu. A little bit more fancy, it looks nice, we're having the same preview. But if you take a close look at the cooling element, here is an interesting part, because we're having a passive cooling, and the reason I'm saying it like this is that I'm totally surprised. If you look at the first generation of Pandora boxes, and I'm calling, let's say, the Pandora Box 4, having the fake key versions, we didn't have a cooler at all. So there was no cooling element on the mainboard. But with the newer released version, of course, we had more power, so we needed some cooling. So we're going from nothing to passive and even some vacuum cleaners, or I mean ventilators. But at the end, they improved it with even silent and better cooling. But with the new model, there is no ventilator, and I have really no clue why they do this. So that's a little bit strange, and I'm very curious. And I'm so curious about the performance. What are we going to get? Not to compare it with the 5 and 6, for example, but what are we going to get with the competition? The competition did upgrade their main boards with very powerful quad cores that can even run PSP and Dreamcast. Not perfect, don't get me wrong, but it is possible. So then is the question, what will the new Pandora box brings us? Will this be a minor upgrade from the previous models, or is this going to be the next generation of powerful Pandora boxes and bringing the game back to the official store? That is something that we're going to find out when I'm getting it in. I'm going to rip and tear, and I want to see for you and for myself, what are we going to get with new Pandora. So the next thing that is quite interesting with the new Pandora DX is the save function. There are some new features over here. First of all, we're having the high score save. A lot of people were requesting this, because in the previous model we couldn't save the high scores. With the fake version we can do this spoofing with the quick load quick save, but that is not really a solution. They say they fixed it. This is something we're going to try out. But also they added the quick load quick save like the Pandora Game 3D and the Pandora Saga 3D. The question again remains, how is this function working? Is it working for every platform, or is it again limited like the previous models that I've reviewed? That is something we're going to find out in the main review, and also how does it work. So we can conclude that from the Pandora Box 6 to the Pandora DX we have some improvements. Many things have been changed and even upgraded. We're having more game support, but the question remains, and that is something that I'm so curious about, how is it with all the problems I had with the previous model? Especially the screen is still the same, the aspect ratio is still the same. I know for a fact this is not going to be changed in a long time. It seems to be they don't give a shit. But at the end, if you look at, for example, the PlayStation 1, this thing crashes all the freaking time. And it was more like a software bug in combination with the rumble function of the controller. Did they fix it? There are little questions that I'm so curious about. So I would say consider subscribing, become one of the Wicked family, because we're going to do many new reviews, extended testings, you name it, we're going to do it. And don't forget to hit the little bell, and I will see you in the next one.